We will now reconvene into open session. The time is now 7:13. And we're excited to welcome Indian Creek Elementary tonight, and our students are going to lead us in our pledges.
It's on, okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you so much. And we would actually like to recognize these two fine gentlemen, Adam Friedenberg, and wave, and Ryan Brown. Well, as Sunday was Veterans Day, and all of our schools did some amazing ceremonies at our school, so thank you so much for that. So we would just like to recognize those of you in the audience who have served or veterans. Please stand and be recognized. Thank you so much for your service. Well, welcome, everyone. The meetings of the board are open to the public, but are not meetings of the public. The Lewisville ISD Board of Trustees meets monthly in a regular meeting to receive reports from staff and take action of recommendations from the superintendent. The board receives the agenda and all supporting documentation approximately 10 days in advance of regular meetings, which allows us to ask and receive questions to many of our questions in advance of the regular meeting. This change in protocol means lengthy discussion or litany of questions on every agenda item of the agenda often is not necessary. And as the board, we should have appropriate knowledge and preparation for responses regarding the content of our meeting tonight. So consider action of items discussed in closed session.
I move that all personnel recommendations be approved as presented by administration.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion by Ms. Sheffield, a second by Ms. Hassett. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, we have our student spotlight tonight.
Flower Mound 9th grade teacher and Flower Mound High School softball head coach Mark Lariba was recently selected as the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association's Humanitarian Award honoree. Lariba has been preaching a servant heart mindset to his players since becoming Flower Mound's head coach in 2006. The NFCA Humanitarian Award recognizes a member coach who has selflessly dedicated time towards the long-term betterment of the community and engaged in charitable activities in the service of others. Lariba and his team have held many free community softball clinics, host a yearly breast cancer awareness fundraiser, and regularly coordinate collection of canned food, blankets, stuffed animals, and so much more. Overall, the team has put in 25,000 hours of community service. Congratulations, Coach Lariba. LISD appreciates your dedication to your students, team, and the community.
Good evening. My name is Sonia Lell, and I'm the principal at Flower Mound High School. I've had the distinct honor to work with Mark for the past 14 years, 12 of which he has been our head softball coach. The video does not do justice to all that this man brings to the program at Flower Mound as well as to the community. He does have a servant heart. He makes sure his kids understand that it's their responsibility to give back and to have character. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Mark Lariba.
Lewisville ISD recently had many student athletes compete in the UIL 2017 State 6A Cross Country Meet at Old Settler Park in Round Rock, Texas. Flower Mound High School's top runner Jared Kirk claimed the UIL State Championship title with a 15-minute 2-second time, which is an average pace of 4 minutes and 49 seconds per mile over 3 miles. This is the best individual state finish in school history, and Jarrett is only a sophomore. Also, the last time a sophomore won state was in 1981. FMHS cross country team is led by coaches Andrew Cook, Katie Dalek, and Michael Horstmeyer. The Hebron High School girls cross country team recently earned a second place finish in the UIL State 6A cross country meet at Old Settlers Park in Round Rock, Texas. The Lady Hawks were led by junior Aaliyah Fazell, who finished 13th with an 18-minute 3-second time. Freshman Keaton Morris, 14th place with an 18-minute 4-second time. Senior Abby Reardon, 20th place with an 18-minute 21-second time. Senior Caitlin Irving, 57th place with a 19-minute 6-second time. Sophomore Navia Patoa, 76th place with a 19-minute 25-second time. Freshman Avery Morris, 78th place with a 19-minute 27-second time. And junior Mia Regan, 88th place with a 19-minute 38-second time. The team is led by coaches Chris Capoe and Becca Shagnon. Congratulations, athletes. LISD is proud of your accomplishments. Flower Mound 9.
A little bit. Okay. I like that. Two rows. Yeah, make 2 rows. Put the trophy in the middle.
Parents? Congratulations to all of our students and staff. We have some amazing kids. We don't have any cards tonight, so persons desiring to address the board. So we'll start off with our information items with academic calendar from Dr. Bonner.
Good evening, board members. Dr. Rogers, happy night to talk to you a little bit about the academic calendar process and the committee that have been undertaken in the past few weeks. You have in your packet a copy of each of the calendars as well as a summary document. And what I'd like to do is just walk down the information sheet so that we all are on the same page. Before I get started, I would like to recognize the 30-plus members of the calendar committee, some of whom were on the committee last year, others of whom are new this year, including parents, teachers, administrators, campus administrators, central administrators, including Mr. Watson, Mr. Ford. But most importantly, we had junior students that participated in the committee as well, which was important because they got to build the calendar proposals that would be in place during their senior year. Okay. Calendar committee met 3 times, October 5th, 10th, and 17th, to look at the calendar options, and what emanated from those meetings were 2 early calendar proposals, we called them, excuse me, and 2 traditional calendar proposals. The earlier proposals took advantage of the District of Innovation tag that the board passed last year, while the traditional calendars conform to current state law, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment. As you all are aware, the district calendars needed to provide 75,600 minutes of operation rather than 180 calendar days. That's a couple of years old. A little bit of fine-tuning was done by the legislature this past session to define what the minutes of operations were as opposed to the minutes of instruction. Minutes of operation are the minutes that occur from bell to bell. The calendar proposals that we all are presenting to you this evening have the following commonalities in them. Obviously, the 75,600 minutes, a couple of bad weather days, the holidays as noted on the information item. I won't read through those. The holidays for students include Columbus Day and President's Day as noted. And then 176 regular and early release days, 8 professional learning days, 3 work days, and a couple of bad weather days. The calendar committee has presented these calendars. We've worked with communications to implement the community survey, which will go online tomorrow, November 14th, which is 1 day later than what's noted in the packet, and we'll run it an extra day to December 2nd to give everybody an opportunity to select the one calendar that they prefer. Each computer device will be allowed 1 vote per IP address. The start dates are different, obviously, in the calendars. The early calendar starts, the 2 options start the week of August 13th, once on the 13th and once on the 15th. All the calendars, the traditional calendars rather, have a start date the 4th week in August as per current state law. The professional learning days in all the calendars are number 8. There is a little bit of a varied approach in the dates, which is noted on the summary page, but there are 8 days in every calendar, as noted. We did a couple of bad weather days, and then there are early release days, as indicated in the calendars. In the past, the district has done early release waivers and professional learning waivers. With the changes in the legislative session this past year, the professional learning day waivers are maintained, but the early release waivers are not. Those are not necessary. Any early release minutes just count as part of the 75,600. I will go ahead and address a couple of probably obvious things about pros and cons on the early calendars. There were a couple of positives expressed by the committee in the early calendars. Chief one being that the fall semester would finish before winter break, and then the spring semester would be finished before Memorial Day. Of course, the big negative to that calendar would be some consequence on athletics and fine arts programs. The football two-a-days are diminished and cut into, obviously, when the calendar's pushed back earlier in the month of August. And volleyball tournaments, according to Coach Ford, still take place during that time, but the students may have to miss a little bit of school to attend those. Fine arts, when I talked to Mr. Watson today, the item there is it just cuts into the band's practice time, which generally transpires those couple of weeks. It now would become school days. In the traditional calendars, of course, the pluses would be it conforms to state law. A couple of negatives there, of course, would be the opposite of what I just said, were positives in the other. The chief negative would be the semester extends over the winter break, the fall semester, that is, and then the length of the school year goes into the month of June. And so those are really the quick look at the pros and the cons. The last item I'd like to speak to just real briefly, there's a summary page comparing the calendars, and the highlighted items are the differences between the early and traditional couplets. As you'll note there, the early A and the early B, there's some differences in the professional learning days, and in the professional learning days later in February and October. And then in C and D, the professional learning days in October and February are the chief difference there. That's a pretty quick run through. If there's any questions or anything that I can elaborate on, I'd be happy to do so.
This is an information item, so we'll come back, but does anyone have any questions? Ms. Prosnick?
The survey, you said that you're only going to be able to select one calendar. Last year we had a ranking. That's the only reason I'm...
Yes, ma'am. Last year was kind of bifurcated. We had the 2 and then the 4, and on the 4, that's absolutely correct, that there was a ranking. The way it was constructed and the way we talked about doing it this year was to be a select one.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Miller?
So one of the reasons we considered this, which influenced another decision, was we were going to really focus on the academic and instructional piece, not the fine arts, athletics, and other activities. And what I heard tonight is that for volleyball, they would miss instructional time by starting early, or just one calendar option?
Yeah, and speaking to Coach Ford, when I asked him what the pros and cons were, both in the committee and earlier today, one of the ramifications for an early start would be the late summer volleyball tournaments that students would attend to without coming to school in a traditional calendar. Those tournaments would be the first couple of weeks of school.
Okay. So I think on this, and again, I'm not going to kind of drudge up things, but I would think that I would hope that our 5 football coaches, our 5 volleyball coaches, our 5 band directors have all been consulted with, specifically, like reached out to, and then, well, I'll let you respond to that.
Absolutely, Coach Ford was on the committee, as was Mr. Watson.
Okay. Well, could I get an answer to that? The 5 coaches and 5 band directors and the 5 volleyball coaches were approached, and what maybe you don't have to tell me who, but what the general consensus was?
Yes, certainly that would have been Coach Ford's constituency, but as far as if he, I can't tell you that directly this evening.
Are you asking Coach Ford to come to the mic?
I am not, no, sir. He told me, come on up, Coach Ford, if you'd like.
Well, and since this is an information item, we can certainly get that information.
Yeah. Except for the fact. I'm sorry. Except for the fact, the reason I'm raising it now is that the surveys are going out, so I'm actually kind of going to another point, but I'd be interested in what the coaches, in particular, we've got the Hebron volleyball, girls volleyball going down to state. I would be curious what the coach, who's given us quite a few championships, would be saying about this if it ran into some issues.
Just as he said, the only problem is the fact that you'll have tournaments that'll be happening during school as opposed to normally what's during our in-service time period. So there'll be some school that'll be missed in that case.
And the coaches are not concerned about this? The coaches are on board?
They're adaptable. You know, they can. I'll take football as an example for a couple of our schools. The fact that they are in school, they'll have busing, as opposed to they'll have to get rides to get to practice. Makes it a little bit more optional for some of those schools as opposed to others. So it depends on where you are as to what you like. All of them are a little concerned football-wise that they won't have two-a-days because that will start the same week that it will start school.
Thank you, Coach. So I think in that, I'd be interested in, are we really making sure that we're getting input from booster parents for bands, volleyball, track, and football? And, you know, I know that they're going to get a notification. And the reason I'm asking these questions now, even though it's an information item, the survey goes out before we meet again. And so how the survey goes out, how it's crafted, and I know we've seen it, how it's scored, the ability or inability for people to respond 4 times because they use 4 devices or once, and the target audiences who are really going to be impacted, I think are important in this one, because we're changing something that's 20 years old, if you look at the legislation. So is there a plan to make sure that those groups kind of get a, hey, boost? I know we did with the PTAs, right, in the Council of PTAs. Could we have a strategy to just make sure that they can be aware of the impact? Because I kind of sense from Coach Ford, the coaches will always do what we ask them to do. They're great from that perspective. I didn't get excitement about getting rid of two-a-days or riding buses or anything like that. And I'm not putting words in Coach Ford's mouth. I just, want to make sure that those audiences are given an opportunity to have input. And sometimes a general email gets lost from the district, right? Especially after Thanksgiving and that type of thing.
Well, first off, our survey, which we've done for a number of years, and while the law has been set for a long period of time, please remember, up until about 5 to 7 years ago, we always got waivers. We were allowed to get a waiver. We always chose as a district to start the school year earlier than the 4th Monday. So only until the state legislature changed it to where you couldn't get waivers, then that changed our practice. So, certainly coaches know that their athletes are also students, and because no pass, no play. So, it all comes into play. I think our system, as far as our survey, is very fair. We had, I want to say, about 10,000 folks that participated last year. We just hope it's a cleaner process this year than last. We all know it was complicated, but.
Well, and Mr. Miller, to your point, my experience has always been, I think we're certainly pushing it out in different, on different media points, whether that's Facebook or Twitter, emails, the website. But it's been my experience that parent groups who are impacted or have a real stake in it will share with those other parent groups. So I wouldn't be surprised that bands across the district probably will, look at the one that suits their needs best and notify their people that they need to vote, as do just parents in general. That's just been my personal experience.
I just had a quick question, Dr. Bonner, just
Yes,
to
ma'am.
clarify. The calendars that have the later dates for August, later start dates, it didn't seem to have much of a variation. Was it just the professional days, or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's exactly correct. It was those February and October professional learning
Okay.
dates.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Bonner.
Thank you.
Ms. Cox, if I can take a moment of privilege. I messed up a while ago and own it. We are very fortunate to have the Lancaster ISD Board President and Executive Leadership person, Ty Jones, here. And he's here to present our Board President, Angie Cox, a special recognition. So, Mr. Jones, welcome.
Thank you very much. Madam President, distinguished members of the board, and Dr. Rogers. I am Ty G. Jones, Board President of Lancaster ISD, as well as the Leadership TASB Alumni Board Member. Tonight, it is my pleasure to recognize one of your colleagues who recently completed the Leadership TASB course of study. Leadership TASB began in 1993 as a way to offer advanced leadership training to experienced board members. It is nationally recognized as a premier leadership training program sponsored by the Texas Association of School Boards. Upon successful completion of the course of study, the recognition of Master Trustee is bestowed upon this individual. Leadership TASB is a highly selective program where normally only 1 in 4 applicants is accepted as a member of the class of 36 participants. Over a 10-month period, the class meets 5 times in 5 different Texas cities. They hear from nationally recognized speakers, tour a variety of school districts, and conduct personal research on a topic of relevance to Texas school trustees. Class members represent the districts from all parts of Texas, from varying sizes of student enrollment and various levels of property wealth. Leadership TASB asks participants to work a little harder, be challenged with new thoughts, and renew their commitment to make a difference on behalf of the school children in the entire state of Texas, and more specifically, to your Lewisville ISD community. Tonight, Madam President Angie Cox joins the ranks of more than 800 LTASB alumni, including myself. I am pleased to present Madam President Angie Cox with this certificate as a lifetime member of Leadership TASB Alumni Association.
And Mr. Jones, thank you for making the trip. We appreciate your service to Texas students.
Dr. Rogers, if I could, as a proud 1997 graduate, it is pronounced Lancaster ISD and not Lancaster. Thank you.
Okay, noted. 2 mistakes.
Thank you very much. Okay, resolution regarding culture of voting. Ms. Hassett.
Board of Trustees, Lewisville Independent School District Culture of Voting Resolution. Recitals. The Texas Education Sections 276.001 and 276.004 protect an employee's right to vote. Exercising one's right to vote is a civic duty that should be encouraged and promoted. The Board of Trustees of Lewisville ISD seeks to create a culture of voting and encourage all district employees to model responsible citizenship for the benefit of students. Public education and an educated citizenry created by public education are the greatest safeguards to the state of Texas and the continuing of our free society. And the Institute of Public Education is best protected by a robust and informed electorate. Resolution. The Board of Trustees of Lewisville ISD supports a culture of voting and seeks to encourage maximum participation by district employees and eligible students in the election process. The Board of Trustees of Lewisville ISD authorizes the administration to take necessary steps to encourage maximum participation by district employees and eligible students in the election process, which may include a series of bullets. Creating district communications that inform employees and eligible students of the importance of voting. Create district communications that inform employees and eligible students about when and where they may vote. Creating district communication that encourage employees to use third-party tools to learn about candidates' position on public education. Conducting campus or district-wide assemblies that promote the culture of voting. Implement administrative procedures that provide time during the day, the early voting period for employees to vote. implementing administrative procedures that provide time for high school principals to execute their legal requirement to distribute voter registration applications to eligible students, implementing no-cost incentives to promote voter participation, such as employees with an I voted sticker get to wear jeans, encouraging district and/or campus coordination with volunteer organizations such as PTA or retired educator groups to encourage and facilitate the district's effort to create a culture of voting. Adopted this 13th day of November 2017 by the Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Ms. Hassett. Okay, discussion items. Monthly financial report, including the bond report and monthly investment.
I'd like to raise a point of order.
Okay.
Did we just agree to a resolution?
It's an information item.
Okay, so that was, but it said agreed to November 13th, 2000.
Reading it.
Oh, okay.
It did say, it had today's date.
Well, yeah, we'll
You're right, good catch.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Okay, monthly financial report, including the bond report and monthly investment report. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Madam President. This report is for the first month of the fiscal year. It's for the month ended September 30th, 2017. Probably the takeaway from this month's financial statement is it gives you a good picture of what our typical monthly expenditures are. It's about $38 to $40 million per month. The other thing to note is we did, as requested, we did change the headings and the graph legends as requested, and certainly be happy to answer any questions the board might have about these financial statements.
Anyone have any questions? Mr. Miller?
I was just, Mr. Ball, I'm sorry, I can't find this. I was just looking for the, so we present the three funds and then the capital projects funds, which is the latest proceeds. And then I was trying to look at what the balance is. I see the debt service payments, but the balance is in our INS fund. It was $29 million last month, I believe.
When you say balance, are you talking about fund balance, Mr. Miller?
The balance in the, fund balance in the INS fund. Yeah.
I believe we're going to end the fiscal year, and we don't have final numbers on the audit yet, but I believe we'll end the fiscal year somewhere in the neighborhood of $39 million.
$39 million.
Don't hold me to that. That's my best estimate from memory.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Ball. Okay, board policy, IEC local, academic achievement, class ranking. Dr. Coburn.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, we are nearing the finish line on all parts of EIC. This began before I was here in Lewisville ISD. It's been a long process, but the good work often is. To update you on where we are, the clicker would be great. Thank you so much. Just to recap, the board workshop from October 25th, you were presented with some options, and our directive was certainly to move forward with presenting you a discussion item on the ranking of the top 10% with the opt-in, opt-out for reporting of based on a counselor-student meeting. And that should say parent. We're actually going to talk about that here in just a second. And also that we would need to include this in board policy EIC local and develop some language for that policy. I want to go back to the consideration of the guiding principles regarding class rank, which you spent some time in on the 25th, where you came up with 4 different principles surrounding the 4 cornerstones, all of which really centered around the fact that our students are more than a number, and our students are a holistic body of what they accomplish in Lewisville ISD. And we are working toward that end to present that information to you. Wanted to give you a little bit more on the Spring Branch ISD model. Spring Branch did employ a 5-year implementation timeline, beginning with a task force, developing a lot of the things that, fortunately, we don't have to quite do as much of that because somebody has already kind of begun the process here. We can take it and make it our own and improve on the things that need to be improved upon, which we will need to do certainly as we discuss our own timeline, which you see right here. that 2018-2019, our timeline would be to create a playbook, be able to drill down, make sure that we understand exactly what the best information is to provide from colleges and universities to our students and our parents and our counselors so that they can make informed decisions regarding who opts in, who opts out, and for whom that is the best option. One of the things that Ms. Crow reported to us in her research is that generally speaking, you have more students opting in when they rank in the top 40% of their graduating class and more students opting out when they rank below the 40th percentile in their graduating class. Our recommendation would be that the first cohort begins with the class of 2021. In terms of timeline, we would either have to have a playbook in place in 8 months or in 20 months in order to be able to do this right. And 8 months is a timeline that we fear is too aggressive to be able to give the best information that we can give. And also, the class of 2021, if you'll recall, the compression of GPA, another thing that would align beautifully with the guiding principles that you discussed in the board workshop, reducing that weighting of AP and dual credit courses. That would align with the class of 2021. The EIC local rewrite that we did back in March has that piece in it. So you would have that all happening with the class of 2021. Beginning with that class of 2021, those students would first have a class rank released to them at the conclusion of their sophomore year. You'll recall that we have suppressed the class rank for the class of 2020 and the class of 2021, our current sophomores and freshmen. One of the things that we had talked about when we brought this to you last spring was a timeline that would allow us to release class rank for the 2020 cohort at the end of the fall semester, the second 9 weeks here in January, and then thereafter, under this proposed timeline, it would be the end of the sophomore year, beginning with our current freshmen, the class of 2021. In December, we would bring you an action item that would include the revised language in EIC local. I do want to point out, too, one more thing I wanted to make sure I said. The Spring Branch model did not include the parent component as a requirement, and that is something that we believe is very important, and we know you've expressed to us it's very important that the parents are involved in that, and that is a huge piece that we will need to build in terms of needing to make sure we take the time to do this correctly, building that parent education component.
Thank you, Dr. Coburn. Are there any questions? This is a discussion item. Ms. Prosnick?
Yes, had a great discussion at the workshop, and I appreciate all the work of staff. I will tell you I'm very disappointed in the timeline, because all this does is give a student the opportunity to publish or not publish if they're outside of that 10% on their transcript. It has nothing to do with suppression of their class rank. It never was about them not knowing what their class rank was. All this was about was putting choice back in the student's hand to make the best decision. And I have great confidence in our counselors on all 5 of our campuses that they can certainly have those conversations, which is what we talked about, which was so important, that having those conversations with those students. I'm very confident that they could have those conversations. I'm very confident in our communications department and Ms. Brim, and that those communications could go out to parents. I think this is good for kids. And I think when something is good for kids, it doesn't do anything to delay it. And I would like to see it for it's too late for the class of 2018 because this has been kicked down the road so long. And I don't want to kick it down another year. And I think that those conversations could take place with our juniors and our sophomores now so that we could implement it next year.
Sheffield?
Can you tell us a little bit more about the playbook, what's involved in that, and because you allude to the fact that there's a challenge there in getting that up to date. So, can you explain to us what's involved in that and what that process looks like and what that will ultimately provide?
Yes, ma'am. I'm happy to. And Ms. Crow and her team have been collaborating with Spring Branch as much as possible on them sharing as much of that information with us as they can. And that is something that we continue to talk with them about. it is about a consistency of message. One of the things that the surveys that we did way back starting in 2016 in speaking with colleges and universities told us is that there's a wide range of how schools do things, and therefore what might be best for a student in terms of their decision to include it on their transcript and report it, or not include it on their transcript and not report it. And it may vary from one school to another, especially when we start talking about private and out-of-state schools. And so it's about making sure that the information is as accurate as it can be. We certainly believe it's a great thing for students to be able to have that option and that choice. We just want to make sure that we guide them toward the one that is best for them. So the conversations include, and we do know this from Spring Branch, everything including what scholarships might you be applying for, what might you be intending on majoring in, what schools are you considering applying to, because the option does not exist to report to some and not to others. The option overall at the end of the day is I'm going to have this on my transcript or I am not. And it's about making sure that every single counselor, every single parent, every single student has the same information and the best information. That really is what the playbook brings us more than anything else. And that's a dynamic piece, because we continue to get information from colleges, and that playbook is a bit of a living document when you learn what colleges and universities are doing.
Mr.
Miller? So I'm going to echo some of the things Ms. Prosnick said, Dr. Coburn, and I know that you kind of inherited this. A lot of us have been working on this for 2 years. I appreciate what Spring Branch is doing. Respectfully, I'm not one that looks at them as a positive reference. I mean, they were all in on everything on District of Innovation. I don't think that shows discretion and wisdom. They just took it all. I do think that there needs to be an approach here, and I thought we were clear. It's now. And so I'm going to be honest with you, I did not read this item in detail because I was so convinced it was just a replay of what we talked about in our workshop, and now to find out that we're talking about a 2 to 3 to 4 year implementation, I think it's over-engineered. I think it's just as Ms. Prosnick said. We turn it off. Now, there is a responsibility the counselors are going to have to tell parents and students, hey, by the way, if your colleges want that, you got to ask for it. I think that's a simple communication. And so I cannot support delaying this multiple years. When this comes up for action, I think we've talked about it. We've had at least 2 workshops on it. We've had 3 workshops. We've had multiple committee meetings on it. And I know we delayed the committee when Christy and Jenny and I were on it. We delayed making a recommendation to the board to wait for the North Texas Regional Consortium. Again, I'm not sure they have infinite wisdom, but I think we know what we need. We know what we want. We are emulating as trustees what our community is looking for. I think we need to move and do it. That's my position, and I can be swayed over the next month, but I need to hear facts on why that is, because we've talked this to death, we've analyzed it to death, and I'm just not sure why students need to be left behind another year or two. And I think all of our decisions tonight need to be in the context of that. I mean, why wait for these other students? I mean, we keep talking about graduate profiles and e-portfolios and suppressing our GPA and getting colleges to look at our students. Well, the year to do that is 2019, in my opinion.
Dr. Coburn, I concur, Tracy and Ms. Prosnick, what you're saying, but I also, know what happens when we push stuff right out of the barn and happens really fast. So I'm all about implementation as well. So my question to you is, what does that counselor ratio look like? Because that is a piece that I was really impressed with, is that our counselors and our students would have the opportunity to see where they are and what opportunities were available for them. So what does that look like with this implementation?
We're certainly examining exactly how to make that work, and it is something that Ms. Crow has presented to myself, Dr. Rogers' leadership team on, and that's one of those pieces when we talk about implementing is one of the things we want to make sure of is that every single student gets an opportunity to have that information in a very structured and meaningful way, so that at the end of the day we don't leave anybody behind. That is probably our greatest fear, is that if we implement it incorrectly and someone is wavering on a decision one way or the other, we just want to make sure we do it right. It's one of the reasons we continue to have those conversations with Spring Branch, and it is something that Ms. Crow has already had conversations on with our counselors, our lead counselors at the high schools, and with all of the high school counselors about how would we do this, what would it look like, how do we make sure that we have an opportunity to meet individually with every child, without exception, and that also there's an opportunity for a parent to have the degree of input that the parent desires, and the requirement would be that there would be some degree of input from the parent on this. And that is, to answer the question, they have no doubt that they can make it happen. We just want to make sure that we do it in the most equitable and consistent way that we possibly can.
Ms. Prosing.
Mr. Coburn, do our counselors not meet with all of our students in the spring about their next year's schedule?
Counselor meetings with students about schedules happen in a setting in which every child receives information, but every student does not have to meet individually with every counselor. It is available to every child to have an opportunity to meet, but if you've got a 4-year plan and you're on track and you know where you want to go and you don't have any questions, they typically end up in a smaller group setting where they input the information, and there's a chance for the counselor to oversee and make sure that they've done the right thing before we hit submit and the course schedule goes in. But the individual meeting is more often than not at the discretion of the child. The counselor has the discretion to pull an individual student in and say, you know what, we do need to talk.
So we could make those mandatory, though, and include this piece in that.
We can do anything. We can do anything.
Ms. Hassett.
I'm a little bit disappointed with the timeline as well. It's just because the current freshmen would then be the first class to be able to participate in this. I fear that if we start a whole year's worth of education process to the parents with the graduating seniors that year will be frustrated that that option was not available to them. So that's a big fear of mine, is that they will be disappointed that they'll be implementing something that their children could have benefited from with that full year's worth of communication. Although I desperately want the communication piece and want to make sure that the timeline is doable to effectively communicate to the parents so the kids are benefited properly. But pushing it off back to the year 2021 is a little disappointing. 2020 would probably be my preferred year.
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, so I'm going to offer you a solution. Just, this is not a quiz, but just what's the average number of counselors on a campus? 10?
No.
Okay.
Not 10.
Okay.
We run an average in the about 6.
Okay, so let's say 6. So let's just say that we put 2 more counselors on every campus, which basically moves you. I thought it was 10, so I was going to give you, 2 more. That's 20%. So let's just say it's 10%, or more than 10%. No, I can't do the math, and Dr. Rapp's not here. I think you put it in the budget. I mean, I guess I'm frustrated that we have money. We put $10 million back in our fund balance, and the sky is not falling with the legislature and all this other stuff, and I know some people think that. But you know what? Here's an opportunity to do what's right for kids now. So I'd like to see in the budget how we increase 2 to 3 counselors on every campus to take pressure off these campuses. The most educated position on a campus is counselors on average. And if it costs us $200,000 or $250,000 per campus, you know what that is? It's $1 million. $1 million spent on people who can take more time to help kids think about what's next. And, by the way, to deal with things like self-harm and other things that go on. Those are the people that do it. I'd love to have a recommendation and us vote up or down whether we're going to spend $1 million or $750,000 on putting people in the campuses to help the staff out.
Mr. Miller, if you remember at our workshop on this, first off, we didn't discuss the timeline, but what we did say is that we would bring those numbers to you at our next board workshop, which is on budget, which will be before the next regular meeting. And so we are prepared, or will be prepared, to provide that information to you. And we know that your heart is in the right place. You want to help kids as fast as possible. We do too. We just want to make sure it's a good rollout. We don't, and I mean, we've gone as far, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Crow, I mean, we've offered to buy the playbook from Spring Branch to help expedite, the model. So we'll continue to work on that, and certainly, we'll go from there. But we will provide you what the model looks like to add additional staff if additional staff's needed, and we'll have that discussion before the next regular board meeting, and then, ultimately we'll do what the board wants. That's not an issue. So,
any other questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Coburn. Consider approval of RFQ 2517-17 Construction Manager at Risk Services for 2017 bond construction projects and other projects on an as-needed basis. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Madam President. This item stems from the 2017 bond program. As the board is aware, we have numerous projects over the 5-year planning period for our bond, and so this is an exercise we undertook in order to identify firms that would be qualified to serve in the role of construction manager at risk on those projects. And we elected to do a 2-step process. The government code allows us to do that. And step 1 of the process, which is what is before the board tonight, is to identify the firms that have been recommended as qualified based on the request for qualifications process that we circularized to the public. We did send out a request for qualifications for firms. We had 10 firms to respond. We made the decision, there was no clear indicator that any of the respondent firms were just clearly not qualified, and so we elected to interview all 10 of the firms. We did that over a 2-day process, gave them about an hour to visit with our panel, which consisted of 3 architects representing the 2 firms that the board has engaged to work with us on these projects. We had Stantec and Huckabee both send personnel. We had several people from our LISD employees. We had our construction folks, our facility services folks, our own in-house architect, a gentleman from our purchasing department, myself, and Mr. Miller sat in representing the board. And so that panel interviewed all 10 of the respondent firms. At the conclusion of the interviews, we had an evaluation process. We scored the firms based on the criteria that were published in the request for qualifications document. And the result of those of that work was to recommend the 6 firms that are listed in the recommendation. That is North Star Builders Group, Pogue Construction, Core Construction, Balfour Beatty Construction, Lee Lewis Construction, and Jackson Construction. And as I said earlier, this is step 1 of the process. And assuming the board approval of these firms tonight, our construction folks will quickly circularize a request for proposals, which would be step 2 of the process, where firms that have been identified as having expertise in the projects that are about to be undertaken, we would request their fees on those projects. And our thinking would be we'd be back at the December meeting with a recommendation to assign specific firms to specific projects. And so, Madam President, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have. It is our recommendation that these 6 firms be appointed as qualified.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Does anyone have any questions? No? Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the 6 construction manager at risk firms to construction projects related to the 2017 bond package and other projects as yet to be identified on an as-needed basis, and authorize the superintendent or his designee to execute a contract with these firms as recommended by administration. The 6 firms are Balfour Beatty Construction, Core Construction, Jackson Construction, Lee Lewis Construction, North Star Builders Group, and Poe Construction.
It's a motion by Ms. Hassett. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Prosnick. All in favor? That's Ms. Prosnick, Ms. Hassett, Ms. Timish, Ms. Cox, Ms. Sells, Ms. Sheffield. Any opposed? It's Mr. Miller. 6-0. 6-1, sorry. Consider approval of DIR TSO 2520 district-wide security cameras, Phase 1 replacement. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a project involving simply the replacement of outdated cameras. This item would replace 705 interior cameras and 90 exterior cameras with a smoke dome lens cover treated with rain wash coating. And this would replace all of the outdated old cameras at campuses not receiving a 20-year refresh. And this is Phase 1 of the camera project. Phase 2 would come at a later date, and that phase involves actually expanding the capability of our camera coverage and quality. And the Phase 1 is simply replacing existing cameras with newer and better cameras. And then Phase 3 would come yet later, which would be as the Phase 1 and 2 project work occurs, any storage issues or other areas that aren't anticipated at this point, if they're uncovered in that, Phase 3 would cover those. So certainly our recommendation that the board approve this item to purchase these cameras, and certainly be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Does anyone have any questions? I just have a quick question, Mr. Ball. We won't be using a construction manager on this project. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the purchase of security cameras via contract DIR TSO 2520 with the anticipated expenditures from the vendor Sigma Surveillance Inc., DBA STS 360, as recommended by administration.
Motion by Ms. Hassett. Do we have a second? Ms. Sheffield? All in favor?
Oh, I wanted to add
question,
a comment,
Mr. Miller?
since it's appropriate to do it after the motion. I just wanted to mention that we did discuss this as a committee. Were you there? 3 of us were on the committee, and Mr. Garrett came in. Mr. Ball's presenting for Mr. Colbeck, of course, came in and talked about what their plan is. A lot of to answer your question, a lot of the things they're going to do themselves at this juncture. This is not cabling. This is replacement, and of course, the next phase will have increased saturation, which is what Mr. Ball was referring to there with coverage. So I think it's a nice plan to get them replaced and then move to the next level.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay, that's a motion and a second. All in favor? 7-0. Okay, consider approval of the Career Technology Education audio video production hardware refresh. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Madam President. This item would replace some equipment that's currently about anywhere from 6 to 12 years old in the CTE area. And this really is an item that addresses today's current needs of students. And it really was brought forward in the Technology Committee when Mr. Moreno presented to the Technology Committee, and I think the consensus of that committee was that failure to replace these computers now really impeded our students' ability to do what they needed to do in their classes. And so this item would replace 36 audio-video production workstations, 10 mobile production stations, and 1 control computer. And it would really, the goal would be, if the board approves this tonight, to really put things in high gear and try to have these computers operational at the beginning of the second semester. So it's an aggressive goal, but we do believe the purpose of it is to meet the current needs of students in those programs.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Are there any questions? Prosnick?
I'm kind of wondering why this wasn't looked at at the summer before the fall semester began? Yeah, if someone from the committee can answer.
Okay. I think the thing that we learned as a technology committee was that we have had a instructor in there that has kind of piecemealed things together. He had the expertise to do that, kind of was a tinkerer. We no longer have him. He retired. And in that retirement, this fall semester has brought to light that a lot of that equipment is being held together by duct tape and popsicle sticks, for a better term. And so what has occurred is that the students in those classes are not really receiving the benefit of the education that we had promised them. And so it is important to us. We feel blessed that we had him, and he kept those things pieced together. But at this time, we feel like we need to make things right for the students that are in those classes before they lose any more instructional material and time. And that was the judge.
Mr. Miller? Ms. Brosnick, I'm sorry.
My other question was that this equipment is 6 to 12 years old, which is beyond our 5-year automatic refresh. So can you explain why that didn't just kick in?
Ms. Brosnick, okay, go ahead.
Some of that was due to some of that equipment had been donated and was never really put into our original inventory system. So the items that had been replaced, but then some of this stuff we would accumulate over time through various processes. So now, with the help of Mr. Colbeck, with Mr. Colbeck and Ms. Sons, we have got all the equipment in the 2 career centers at Del Jackson and Career Center East in the inventory system. And through that process, we have analyzed that we are overdue for a refresh. And so it has been brought forth that, it is time to make things right so that the kids, depending on whichever career center they end up going to, the equipment that they have to work on is equal regardless of where their schedule places them in that particular building. So that is why it has kind of taken us a little time to get it to this point, but we're here asking for a little help so we can make those 2 programs equal to the best that we can.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I just wanted to offer a couple of things. So those are great questions, Ms. Brosnick. We actually met on this twice. So the first time was Mr. Colbeck and Ms. Sons brought a need to us. We wanted to make sure that we weren't a hammer looking for a nail because we are going to spend $246,000 from the 2008 bond. I think we need to be looking at how we can spend that money aggressively, right? This is working capital. We're paying interest on it. We need to put that into circulation and make and get used. This one was highlighted, as Ms. Sells said, because of that. And then we asked Mr. Moreno to come and meet with us and explain why we need to do this. The goal is to make these uniform across both career centers. And I think the issue of, I would say, this is a no campus left behind issue, right? With the push into technology, campuses were getting stuff all the time, except for the career centers. So it was because they're not the squeaky wheel getting the grease, and Adrian's not up here every month saying, "Hey, where's mine?" Right? And so and we know how much we put an increased priority on career centers in the last 2 or 3 years. So we actually then said, let's move this up. So if there's an issue, because I'm going to raise it later, on amount of time in front of the board, it's because we said, hey, if we can get this done before the next semester, it would make sense. So if anybody, I don't think anybody has a concern. If there's a concern about accelerating this, that's the reason for it, to kind of, and we have as a board kind of fixed some things, right, that weren't done effectively or in timely manner in the past. That's why we just really felt that the kids in these classes need this now. We have the money. We're respecting process, but we want to get it in there as soon as possible. So,
Mr. Ball, I just had a quick question. So, yes, I agree. Will there be any recycling efforts of the prior equipment, and will there be any benefits of that?
Well, yes, we do try to recycle all of our technology equipment. The salvage value is very marginal, I think, is the best answer I could give you on that.
You're going to recycle the equipment.
Yes.
Okay, does anyone else have any other questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion. I move to approve the purchase of Apple products through DIR contract number DIR TSO 3789 and Dell computer products through DIR contract number DIR SDD 1951 for the Career in Technology Education Audio Video Production Hardware refresh at a cost not to exceed $246,000 using 2008 technology bond funds as recommended by administration.
A motion by Ms. Sells, second by Ms. Timish. All in favor? That's 7-0. Consider approval of RFP number F100417, 2017-20 Footstep Van Food Truck. Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Madam President. This item has been before the board already in March. At the March meeting in 2017, the board approved the purchase of this truck with the use of child nutrition funds contingent upon approval by the Texas Department of Agriculture. Though the request was submitted to TDA, who then sort of deferred the decision, if you will, to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So our Ms. McDonald, our Aramark representative in LISD, has submitted a pretty nice term paper, if you will, to both TDA and to USDA. They have both declined to authorize use of child nutrition funds for this purchase, and the reasoning is that they view this much like an expansion to the building in the kitchen. That would not be an eligible use of child nutrition funds, but we have gotten their approval. If we can purchase the truck with general fund dollars, we do have the authority to operate it just like we operate our kitchens, and that all the maintenance and other expenses of the operations are allowable usages of child nutrition dollars. And so because this was on the March agenda and it's taken all this long to go through these processes of having both the state agency and the federal agency give us an answer on it. Here we are in November, and the truck remains on the lot of the firm that agreed to sell it to us for $147,005, I believe it is. And so what's before the board tonight is using the same bid and the same proposal response from the vendor that was approved in March. The request tonight is to approve that same purchase using general fund dollars and then convert that to use by the child nutrition program, just like we would do a kitchen in a building. And you've been provided with a calculation on the return on investment. That would our calculations are that it would pay for itself in about 3.7 years. And so certainly it's our recommendation that the board approve this purchase to buy this food truck with general fund money. We do believe it would significantly enhance the district's ability to serve underprivileged students during the summer months when they're not typically eating a school breakfast and lunch as they do during the school year. So be happy to answer any questions the board might have about this item.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Ms. Hassett?
I do have a question. So if it comes out of the general fund, but when we are paying for the child fee, costs of the lunches, it would really go back into the child nutrition fund. Are we going to repay the general fund with the $146,005 with the child nutrition fund?
That's a great question, but the answer to that would be no. Just like we don't repay the general fund or the bond fund when we build a new campus and we build a kitchen, we do not recover those costs either from child nutrition funds. Those are not allowable costs. So we can't purchase it with child nutrition funds, and we wouldn't be able to recover those funds through any other means, just like we can't do when we build a new building. They're viewing the truck in a similar manner as they would a kitchen expansion.
Mr. Miller?
I had a late game question on this today, and I apologize. After seeing a lot of the questions that came out on this, I guess I'll ask a couple questions and offer something. Dr. Rogers or Mr. Ball, would you like to talk about the merits and the value of this? Because we're talking about the nuts and the bolts, the $147 for a truck, but we saw some value in this regardless of who was paying for the truck originally.
I'd be happy to speak to that. I think the thinking on this is that in a dining establishment, which is what our cafeterias are, to their credit, the folks who are managing our child nutrition operations recognize that students have a choice every day about whether or not they will participate in the food offerings that we have. I think the projections would indicate that having that new and different option will enhance the participation in our child nutrition program, which ultimately benefits the district because it enables us to, although the state and the federal agency have not been willing to approve this purchase with child nutrition funds, to the extent that just from a business standpoint, that it would enhance the profitability of the operations, it does provide funding for other types of equipment purchases that are allowable with child nutrition funds. That's money issues. That's not really what you ask about, but I think from a student perspective, it provides something new and innovative, just like we are always doing with trying to upgrade the menu boards, provide different menu options to keep kids interested in the food choices that are available to them. And so I think it would go from it would rotate among the high school campuses is the plan, and I believe it would increase the participation. I think that's the thinking on what this really would accomplish for kids.
And Mr. Miller, I'll jump in as far as summer feed. Now, we already feed a lot of students in the summer when they're at summer school, but there's a lot of students that aren't going to summer school, and so we just saw this, particularly as we came to you previously this year, as a way to just serve kids throughout the entire year with at least 2 additional meals. We know that we have a lot of kids that go home on the weekend and they're not sure where their meals are coming from, and we certainly know that when they're at home during the summer, and so this was just our way of trying to make a dent in that issue. But we certainly understand the dilemma now as far as general fund versus not.
Mr. Ball, could we use bond money from the 2008 bond for this?
I'd have to check on that, Mr. Miller, because typically you cannot. If it were a building, the answer would be yes. But because this is a vehicle, I think there has to be a specific provision in the bond order related to vehicles. So we'd need to check on that before we did it. But assuming the language was appropriate in general enough in the bond order, it's certainly a possibility we'd want to check on.
Okay, so it'd be the definition of the bond prospectus, not the TEA.
Right.
Because they've already said it's essentially an extension of a kitchen. So we could use bond money to modify a kitchen if we had to in an emergency. We could have, as a board, we could have an item come before us that reallocates money, right? If our concern is our M&O and our fund balance, which is well over $160 million, seems to me there's a way for us to get creative on real innovation and limitless opportunity, because real innovation is having a truck, which a lot of school districts don't, and providing limitless opportunities for kids who don't have meals on weekends and in the summertime. This is our vehicle, no pun intended, to do that.
I would suggest that we would need to really take a close look at the bond order that was done in 2008, get some legal advice on that before we pursue that. And the other thing I think that is in play is that truck is sitting on the lot, and the time it would take to get that advice, come back to the board for authority to go in another direction. If the truck gets sold to someone else, odds are the price will go up. So I think the innovation there that I would see would be to have the truck and to utilize the profits that it could generate to build some fund balance in the child nutrition fund and use that to enhance our kitchens with equipment that would be allowable.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I would say that the real innovation is just having the truck.
Absolutely.
Regardless of whether it has a return on investment, because it's about kids.
Right.
And so, if our food service company would like to participate in helping us buy that, that'd be great. But for me, I don't really care if it's bond money or M&O money. I mean, it's $147,000. I'll guarantee you we're going to run a surplus of $147,000 this year. Probably more like 5 or 8, the way that we typically do things. So it seems to me that it's an investment into providing for our kids, at least on the weekends in the summer, and the other stuff is a bonus.
Just a quick question, and I appreciate the additional information about the summer program that you'd provided, but I just had a thought after those responses came back. And I'm assuming that anyone could wander up to our food truck and purchase something from them?
That is correct. Anyone within I think there's an age limit, but I think other than that, there's no limit. And that's true of the current operations within our buildings.
Well, but it's a little more difficult to, I have to show my driver's license, and then that's kind of weird. You're not going to go to the cafeteria as your community member, but I'm thinking as a food truck, if I'm in the community and the food truck pulls up, I mean, that's why, so.
And those would be reimbursable meals if that were the case.
Right, okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I do.
Timish?
Thank you so much for this information, and I appreciate that we're wanting to make sure that we're providing meals for students that don't have it. My question is, with as large as our district is and as diverse in the area, we're providing meals to a certain area like once a week, correct? We're really not sustaining. It's just one meal once a week. It's not really feeding them. They've got to eat more than once a week.
That's a great question, Ms. Timish. The truck does have the capability to, and I don't have the numbers memorized, but it's a significant number of students that can be served in a half hour's time, which is typically the serving period for the lunch time at school. And so the capability exists, and I think it's Ms. McDonald actually indicated this in the term paper, if you will, that she wrote in support of this thing, that there is the capability in the summer to move to, several locations on the same day to serve students, stop and, serve the crowd that's there, relocate, serve the next crowd, and do that multiple times in a single day. So I think, although certainly we would not want to represent that one truck could serve the whole district, but it certainly has the capability to serve multiple locations multiple times each week during the summer.
And Ms. Timish, in my discussions originally with Ms. McDonald, we had certainly planned to serve at least 2 locations a day, for multiple days every week through the summer. So,
for example, if a child were in one area, they couldn't depend on the meal every day, but they could depend on it once a week to be in their area?
Yeah, we haven't mapped out exactly where, but certainly we'd map it out where we have a higher concentration of kids at, on free and reduced lunches, and apartment complexes and those types of things would be part of our target. But we'd figure out a rotation. I think your point is valid that you'd want a kid to know, hey, we're going to be here every third day or every other day or whatever. And so that's the rotation that we try to figure out.
And because I think for me, what's important with the food truck is just if we really want to be meaningful, that there's consistency. It's a fun idea. I just want to make sure if there's really a need that we're meeting it in a meaningful way. And just, is there opportunities with other partners that can make sure that these kids are being fed, regularly? Because I just want to make sure every third day, I just want to make sure that kids can depend on us if they need it.
Has it?
Just came up with a question because we've been talking for so long. In the summer, how can we incorporate learning into our truck? The summer, I think we should at least consider how we can incorporate
But
learning.
that's not relevant to the topic right now.
We should
Food for thought.
Food for thought.
Requesting in a future agenda item, which you could do at this juncture. Ms. Cox, I'd just like to offer that I think I'm really excited about this. I think one meal every 3 days for some kids is 100 meals a year. I mean, that's a lot for some kids. And I think as the administration comes back and makes some recommendations, perhaps consider where our biggest need is. This does not have to be, if we don't buy 5 because there's 5 feeders, we don't get them. It needs to be, where do we have the biggest need? Let's start there. And everything starts with 1. We don't need to wait till we get 5 or 10. Let's start with 1. And we all can sit here and say if we had to pick a school, we'd pick the same school, probably, to start with, at least once a week. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to invest in our kids and really look at how we can close the achievement gap. And kids cannot achieve if they're hungry, sick, tired, scared, or don't come to school.
And ultimately, we just felt we owed it to the company to give them an answer, and so that's why we're here. Either way, we just felt like they've been left hanging long enough. So,
anyone else? Well, I just have a quick comment that I'd like to make. I'm all about supporting kids and helping kids with hunger because I agree, as what you just quoted, Mr. Miller. But I don't like the fact that we're taking away from the general funds. I mean, that's a teacher we could hire in the classroom. And I don't like the fact that it's not something for the entire district. I think that if we're going to provide services, that we provide something for all of our kids in the district. I mean, that's what we're here for. We all have needs, and each of our communities have kids that need food and need to be served. So I would hate for an area that wouldn't get food that day that we were serving in a different community. So I know it's a hard decision. But there's so many. We are in such a blessed and giving community. I mean, there's a fundraiser probably every week that you could go to and serve for somebody. So by CCA, the church I'm even involved with, we serve meals every week to an apartment complex or somewhere in the summer. And we need to outreach more. If we're not serving our kids, or we need to do that, maybe we need to outreach more to our community and say we need more of an area in this for our kids. So that's just my comments and 2 cents for this item.
I'm going to pivot on that. Our Rotary just raised 200 turkeys. We only have a place for 100. So I'm just using that to offer to, in the context of this, there's 100 turkeys that our kids have raised for meals if anybody has a need.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Okay, are there any other questions? Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the contract and anticipated expenditure through the district's general fund with the vendor Trailer Logic, LLC, as recommended by administration.
It's a motion by Ms. Prosnick. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Sheffield. All in favor? That's a motion by Ms. Prosnick, Ms. Hassett, Mr. Miller, and Ms. Sheffield. Any opposed? That's Ms. Timish, Ms. Cox, and Ms. Sells. All right. Consider scope of work and budget for renovations on portions of the Bolin Center. Mr. Ball. It's the Mr. Ball show tonight.
I'm so sorry for y'all. Madam President, this item is, just to refresh everyone's memory, we had $10.2 million allocated several months ago to purchase the remainder of this little shopping center where we're in, the buildings that are contiguous to this building. And at the time, you recall, we wanted to be a little bit coy about how much of that we were allocating to the purchase and how much to the renovation, because we did not want to jeopardize our ability to negotiate with the seller. And Mr. Martin led the efforts to do that, did a great job. We've since purchased the building, and you may recall along about the same time, the district sold the building called the Annex over in Old Town Lewisville to the city of Lewisville, and the proceeds from that sale were $820,034. And upon the advice of our bond counsel, we took those funds and utilized them to as a part of the purchase price when we bought the property. And so that freed up the remainder of the funds for the renovations of those spaces. In the course of the planning for that renovation, we thought we need to take a look at the existing space here and see if there's anything that would enhance, that would be sort of complementary to the new space and the ability to maximize the whole facility. And so we've come up with some additional efficiencies in the existing space here, and we believe that combined with the money that's left over from the original $10.2 million, then added to by the $820,000 from the sale of the annex, we believe we need another $504,000 in order to get to a total of $4,670,000 that would be available to turn our design team and our construction manager at risk loose to come back with a guaranteed maximum price to do that work, both in the newly acquired space up to but not including the thrift center, the thrift city space. But it would include all the office space between this building and that, and some work within this building to provide a better experience for our technology customers, if you will, that are coming to this building seeking help or coming to this building to pick up and turn in technology equipment. And so with all that said, it's certainly our recommendation that the board approve this item, and we'll be happy to try to answer any questions the board might have about it.
And this did go to facilities.
It did. Thank you.
I just have one question. I'm going to support the item. When we hired the CMR, was it an understanding that they could handle the scope of this project in its entirety?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Would anyone from the Facilities Committee like to comment? No? Okay. Are there any questions? Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the allocation of a total amount of $4,670,000 towards the renovation of the new bowling center space, including work inside the existing bowling center, as presented by administration.
A motion by Ms. Timish. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Prosnick. All in favor? 7-0. Motion carries. Consider authorizing the issuance of unlimited tax refunding bonds Series 2017A, establishing a calendar of events, establishing sale parameters, authorizing the execution of a bond purchase agreement and an escrow agreement, approving an official statement, and enacting other provisions relating to the subject. None other than Mr. Ball.
Thank you, Madam President. This item, we talked about it a little bit last month, that we have met with the Finance Committee about it. This is an opportunity to refund or refinance some existing debt because of a declining interest rate market that we've been in. This is certainly not an unusual transaction. We've actually done 5 of these transactions since 2014, and those 5 transactions have resulted in a total debt service savings of $93,123,150. Those are future debt service payments that our taxpayers of the district will not have to make without any extension of the final maturity of those bonds. And tonight's opportunity is an opportunity to add about $6.2 million to that total in a 3-year period, really, to reduce our future debt service by close to $100 million if the board were to approve this thing. And so that's about 26.3 cents of tax levy that our taxpayers will not have to pay over the next 10 years or so. And again, we're not extending the final maturity of any of these bonds. And these are just normal and expected transactions when we're in a declining interest rate market. What makes this transaction a little bit unusual is that this escrow account, there's been some questions about the escrow account. Virtually all of these 5 transactions that I've cited all had escrow accounts. They all had an escrow agent, a paying agent, exactly the same type scenario as what we're proposing tonight. The difference in tonight's proposal and maybe some of these simply is about the length of time that the purchased securities would stay in the escrow account. And the question's been asked, who is the escrow agent? And it's U.S. Bank National Association in Dallas. And that financial institution has served as the escrow agent for each of the 5 transactions that I've referenced. And it is a requirement of state law. The Attorney General would not approve the transaction without a qualified escrow agent. So certainly, again, it's nothing unusual or certainly nothing we haven't done multiple times in the past as a district. And it is an opportunity to save $6.2 million. And the other thing that's really a current event is the fact that, as you know, if you follow the news, the Congress is debating tax reform as we speak. And one of the provisions in the federal, at least in the Senate version of the federal tax reform bill, would be that this type of transaction would not be allowed after calendar 2017. And so the calendar of events that we're proposing would be the pricing of these securities would occur on December 7th, with closing and funding on around December 28th. So it would enable us to get this proposed transaction closed by the end of the calendar year. And we do believe it's in the best interest of our district to save these $6.2 million now while we know it's available under the current law and under the current interest rate market. And so with that, I probably should ask Mr. John Martin to come to the podium and talk about anything I've left out or correct anything that I said incorrectly. And certainly either of us would be happy to answer any questions the board may have. We also have Mr. Chuck Covdish here, our bond counsel from the firm of McCall, Parkhurst, and Horton. And any of the 3 of us would be delighted to answer any questions the board might have about this transaction. Mr. Martin.
Thanks, Mr. Ball, Dr. Rogers, Madam President, members of the board. Thank you for having me here this evening. You summed it up great. It's an opportunity to save $6.2 million. We've gone through, I know, the board meeting last month. We've had a finance committee meeting, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Ball, Mr. Martin, Mr. Miller?
Yes. So I've got a number of questions, and I apologize. As I saw the questions come back and actually got into 34 pages of this, I was having a hard time figuring out why I was uncomfortable, and I think it's no secret that I'm uncomfortable with this. because of the accelerated pace. And I think Mr. Ball is right. We've done bond swapping, which is what this is, forever. It's the length of term this money is going to sit in escrow. And what I'm struggling with is, what is the district's strategy? And as a trustee, I can't tell you what it is. Do we have a strategy to pay off debt or to avoid the issue, servicing the fees, right? This is an avoidance of payments. So it begs the question, what do we do with that savings? Well, we can't do anything with the savings because we're just avoiding paying. And so as I really got into this, I started thinking, we're not paying off debt. And the biggest criticism we have right now is the size of our debt. And we keep asking, where's the opportunity for us to pay down debt? And you know what this does? And correct me if I'm wrong. We have 3 instruments, 2012, 2013A, and 2013E. 2012 it comes due in 19. It's $19+ million. We could pay that off because we're sitting on almost three. I won't quote you on the 39. I'll give you 35. We've got $35 million that we could use 20 of that to pay that off in 2019. That saves us money right there. Let's just say that's $2 or $3 million. I mean, the net savings of this strategy might be $2 million. And in that, we have an opportunity to pay down debt. For the first time, to make a decision to pay down debt, if we don't do this, if we escrow this money, which basically means for the public, we're going to go out and sell bonds, right? We're going to take those proceeds and we're going to pay off those, put them in escrow, and we're going to pay those bonds off in 2019, 20, and 21. Is that correct?
And 22, 19, 20, and 22.
Okay. So we're going to sell bonds now. We're going to escrow that because we think the market's going to shift, which, by the way, since I've been... It's shifting, but since I've been a trustee, every bond thing that we've done, whether new bonds or refi, has been lower, right? So, I mean, I remember sitting in the audience when you guys were looking at 4 to 5, and you guys always came in better, whatever the board approved, 4.5, you came in better than that, which is a testament to the whole syndicate. But I'm just struggling with why not pay off the $20 million with money that we have today? Because here's the thing. We're going to get in a juxtaposition as it relates to our tax rate. So we did not lower taxes. No matter what anybody thinks, we did not lower taxes this year. We lowered the tax rate. Effectively, though, we raised people's taxes. So when we do that, now there's money that's going to go to the servicing of the new debt, but when we do that, why don't we take some money and pay off debt? And 3 trustees have been very vocal about that in the last year. If we put these bonds in escrow, we have no refinancing opportunities in the next till 2022. Is that correct?
Ask the question again. I'm sorry.
If we do this bond swap now, we sell the bonds, we put the money in escrow. We cannot. There's no other bonds that will be called in that period. In other words, if the market does go in our favor, we're stuck here, right? That's what we're betting on.
There are plenty of other bonds available to you to pay off. These are not all the bonds out there that are eligible for redemption in the future.
Okay.
So what we have taken is we've taken a small snapshot of your debt portfolio and taken some of the higher yielding bonds and that makes some sense to be able to replace with lower interest rate bonds, right? And what ends up happening is you are paying off debt in that you are, and first of all, in terms of the one thing that state law has for you is schools cannot issue more bonds, refunding bonds, than they are paying off. So we have a situation here where we got $64.2 million that are refundable candidates, we'll call them, right, to be refunded. We can't issue more than $64 million. So we're not increasing debt, but what we are is we're going to be accelerating the amount of debt because, just like when you refinance your home and you go from a 6% rate to a 3% rate, not only are the payments lower, but you're accelerating the principal payments of that. So you're paying it off faster, right? So the math works that way in your favor, and at the same time, the taxpayers of the district are saving $6 million.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a hard time with the terminology, some of the terminology, the swap and all that, because it's not really a swap. It's a refunding, in that what you're doing is you're taking, as you said, you get the concept. The proceeds go into an escrow. The escrow purchases government securities. The whole idea is those government securities try to recapture the amount of interest that you're paying until the call date. Everything that's left over we're upside down, if you will, right? So that's the negative arbitrage. In most cases, something that's callable in 2022, for example, we wouldn't show you. It wasn't available to us in the past because now what's happened is short-term interest rates have moved up so much that the escrow gives us a nice shield where this thing works.
Yeah, and if Google wasn't friendly to me on that terms bond swap, then it's my mistake. But
well, there are swaps, but
yeah.
that is a term of art in our business.
Yeah.
So
this is what I feel like. At what point does LISD say that we're going to continue to be in the business of refinancing our credit cards? We're at 18%, we're at 15%, we're at 12%, we're at 2%, right? We get new credit cards. Versus, when are we going to pay off that darn credit card?
Well, I think one of the things that we talked about, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know if it was this month or the month before, that there's a refunding of a refunding, okay? And one thing that we can't do, and won't be able to do if either they're both House and Senate have in their provision, am I right, Chuck? Do not allow for advanced refunding. So we don't know if that's going to happen or not. It's got a lot of votes to go, but if it does, assuming it does, there's another. We talk about, Mike, 15 million or so bonds that are callable this coming August. So we continue to monitor this. You've seen this, and Mr. Ball said, we've come around every year and we found certain bonds that work in terms of the math, and we continue to monitor that, as do about 15 different underwriting firms that look at this too. That keeps us honest. But I think that the opportunity that may be available, to your point, Mr. Miller, would be that in May there's $15 million that if you wanted to use cash or a portion of that cash to offset the need to borrow, and the district did that in 16 or 15.
16, I believe.
Yeah. And then before in 14 there were $3 million. There was $3 million. Don't hold me to the numbers. I believe there was about $3 million contributed to a refunding in 14, and about $7 million contributed to a refunding in 15 or 16. Something to that.
Right, and we are planning to bring a proposal to the board in the spring, assuming the interest rates remain in our favor. There is another refunding opportunity that will be available, we believe, in late spring. And we do have $8 to $10 million, we believe, that we can retire some of the, in a refunding. We can retire more debt than we're reissuing, and I would submit that the district has reduced its debt. I would struggle with the characterization that our bond debt is similar to a credit card, in that we have reduced our debt service payments by $93 million over the last 4 years, and those are real dollars that our taxpayers will not have to pay over the remaining life of the debt. This is another $6.2 million opportunity to reduce future debt payments, and we believe there will be another opportunity in the spring to actually contribute some cash to a refunding opportunity that will reduce our debt even more. So certainly there is and has been a strategy to reduce our debt at every opportunity that we have.
Could I piggyback?
I'm sorry. I just want to. I want to make sure I understand that. So $93 million based on these refinance. So that's not based solely on the funding that we've done, the refinancing. That's based on the fact that, one, we're paying, of our $130 million in servicing of debt, half that goes to principal on an annual basis.
The $93 million is actually reduced debt service payments that our taxpayers would have to pay had we not done those 5 refundings over the last 4 years.
It's cash flow savings.
But I think we'd agree. We don't know what it is if we would have paid off money. We're sitting on $30+ million in INS that we could put into. It's not part of the new proceeds. We've never gone out and paid off an instrument. Right? We've let it come to the end of the term, right? There's another instrument in here that comes due, I think, in 2018, $1 million, something like that. We're going to let that go. And here's what I feel.
Mr. Miller, we have never extended debt in this district.
No.
Ever.
I'm saying that.
So
there
it
was
does, it might take a different pedigree from the original pedigree. The 1996 bonds became the 07 bonds, and now they're maturing in 17.
I'm not.
So they are
I know
paid
we don't
off.
extend our debt. We don't extend our
Yeah.
debt. But when you have the tax dollars coming in, and you don't use those tax dollars that are in the fund to pay off debt, that's what I'm struggling with. And here's what I feel like. There might be some things in 2015, maybe this, or 2017, maybe the Finance Committee's gone through all this. I would hope that they would have. But here's the deal. I don't know. And what I'm being told is for the first time ever that we need to put in escrow $64 million, I think maybe even
Not the first time ever.
for an extended period of time. We won't even have one to pay till 2019.
I'm sorry, sir. I respectfully disagree. That's not true.
What are we going to do with the money in
This
2019?
district has done probably a dozen advanced refundings in the last 15 years.
2 years out?
This is not uncommon. This is not uncommon. This is not an uncommon practice.
It's not been done since I've been on the board.
Yes, it has.
Really?
Yes, sir.
But when was that?
You entered into a long-term escrow in 2016. You entered into a long-term escrow. This year we didn't. In 2017, that was a current refunding. It was those bonds were callable in this past August. You refunded them in May, so you only had a 3-month escrow. The longer escrows have been done. You are correct in saying we have never had anything as long as a 5-year escrow. This is an aberration in the market, as you can see in the very last page of what was provided in your information there, that it's the difference. And that's why we're here tonight, is because it works. It didn't work back in May. If had it worked in May, we would have showed it to you then.
And John, I'm 100% with you except for this. I have no idea what our overall strategy is to reduce debt. I know that we react. And it's not your job to have that policy, it's ours.
Okay.
And we don't have a debt management policy. And so here we are talking about, once again, it's the first time I've heard tonight that we have opportunities to pay off debt next year if we do this instrument. It's the first time I've heard it.
Whether or not we do this instrument, we have opportunities to reduce debt next May.
Right, but how would I have known that in the context? Is last month I raised objections and nobody came to me and said, here's how we address your objections. What I feel is like there's a mosaic here and I don't have the full picture. And so that's what I'm fundamentally concerned with. We are being asked, because it's a 5-year escrow, we're being asked to do this. And the fear of the markets have never materialized. And listen, there's not going to be a tax plan at the end of 2017, I promise you. Does anybody think that Congress is going to have a tax plan by the end of 2017?
I will agree with you, but I would be surprised if they don't have one by March 1st. And it's not going to be a retroactive. They're not going to forgive you if you didn't do it.
That's right.
As a point that we had in 1985. Remember, we had a 1985 Tax Act that went away. It became the 1986 Tax Act that was effective at the end of 1985, December 31. So it was retroactive. So if you didn't get in, tough.
And John, my beef isn't with you, so you know that. Here's the thing. Why are we not taking another month then to educate the board so that every one of us can clearly articulate what our strategy is and what our plan is to pay off debt? Let's take another month. It's not going to happen probably before March, so take another month. Let's make sure that everybody's on board. We talk about our strategy. What's our policy on paying off debt? We are the 8th largest servicer of debt in the state of Texas as it relates to ISDs. It would seem to me that none of this is a surprise to us. This is all planned out. The board knows, hey, I've looked at the charts. Yep, going to something come up. Yep, makes sense that we're looking at different instruments. Seems to me that would be reasonable. We will spend more time on GPA than we will on this decision. And I'm just struggling with, now here's the politics of it. Trustees will vote for it. Yep, I voted for $6.2 million, but we don't know what that compares to if we would have paid off debt. It might only be a savings of $1 million or $2 million. Trustees that vote against it, well, they didn't pay to save the money. No, you know what? We voted to pay off debt. And I don't know what that strategy is. And if it exists, I'm glad to hear it. And I think I made that well known last month, and an opportunity for people to come and convince me that there was a full story here. I don't think that anybody's being deceptive. I think there is an opportunity to save this money. But you know what? I don't know what that is compared to what if we paid off the $20 million with our $39 million or so, $35 million in INS fund today that sits there doing nothing for the taxpayers. Nothing. Until something happens. And so I think that we have been clear with our staff over the last year. There's been rumblings of, let's pay off debt, let's pay off debt. Maybe we shouldn't have dropped our tax rate. We could have taken that money and paid off more debt. We will get evaluated as a board on our debt, not our tax rate. It's my opinion. I know not everybody will agree, but watch what happens. So,
other questions? Yes. Ms. Hassett?
So INS debt service, I would disagree that it sits there and does nothing. Don't we at least collect interest on our INS debt? Yes. So it does. It's not that it does nothing. And I'd also disagree with your effective tax rate definition. Ours, we do not have the same effective tax rate as the cities and counties do. If there was an effective tax rate that was imposed by school districts, it would definitely be by the state level, not by the school districts themselves. So I definitely disagree with that. I believe that having a discussion on what should we do with a large fund balance in either the debt service or the M&O would be a great discussion to have soon. I think that's a great idea of what to do. I also would vehemently agree that this is a good idea for the districts in trying to make sure that we can, before the DOP decides to make this option not available within the 2017 era, that we should definitely save our taxpayers money when we can.
Rosnick?
Mr. Martin, you'll be happy to know I asked Mr. Ball a couple of questions, and he said he didn't know the answer, but that you would.
Oh, boy. Thanks, Mike.
Anytime, John.
My first question is, will this refunding be callable? Will they be callable?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. What we have right now in the preliminary numbers is a typical of Lewisville ISD is a 9-year call feature. Most school districts have 10-year call features.
Right. The second question is, it's on the fee schedule. What is an analytics fee?
An analytics fee is a fee that we charge that's eligible to be paid per our contract, and we charge that when there is a refunding, because when there's an additional amount of numbers.
Okay, because it wasn't on the one that we did in the summer, and that's where my
the new
question
money
came
deals,
from.
there's not near the calculations and mathematics that goes into it.
All right, thank you.
But that was easy.
Any other questions?
Mr. Kovdish has something to add. I think is really imperative about when there's talking about these tax bills that are pending, federal tax bills that are pending, and what happens if we wait.
Just to make it a little more complicated, come January 1, whether a tax bill has been passed or not, neither our firm nor any other bond counsel law firm will be able to give a clean tax opinion on an advanced refunding bond issued after January 1. That's going to basically kill the market for them. The reason people hire us is because we give a clean opinion that the interest on the bonds is tax exempt. Well, if you've got pending legislation, we can't do that, and it'll affect the market. It'll affect basically whether or not you can even do the deal. So I know, Mr. Miller, you've got great ideas for coming up with a policy, but the clock is ticking on this deal, because come January 1, the opportunity just may completely disappear.
Thank you. I think that is important information, but I expect this to pass anyway. I think the fundamental point that I'm making is that, well, this is not a fundamental point, but I'll just make this as kind of a broad statement. I think it's, once again, we kick down a can down the road as it relates to putting a strategy in place, and I think that as it relates to our debt, we have had this discussion, and there's been increased interest and attention around debt payoff, not just debt servicing. And I want to be clear, if I'm Hilltop or if I'm you guys, I'm recommending this, right? I mean, you should recommend this. I think that for me, it's caught in a bit of a whirlpool of where's our strategy. And given that we are the 8th largest servicer of debt of school districts of 100,000 or 1,100, I think that it's fair for us to have a strategy. And yep, we could save some money. And yep, you know what's going to happen? We'll do this, and in May we'll be talking about something that has to be done with bonds that are called, and we'll be talking, because this is what's happened in 4 years since I've been on the board, and I'm just appealing to kind of fundamentals here of let's not rush to this. And I get that there's market conditions. We don't have a strategy. We're reacting to the market. We're reacting to different influences. And that's incumbent upon us as a board to provide that, not Hilltop or our bond counsel. And so here we are, all of a sudden everything's being condensed, and I just, if nobody agrees with strategy, tell me what the valuation was against paying off debt versus refinancing it with the money that we're talking about. If somebody can answer that, yep, we looked at it and it's a $1.7 million gap, right? Maybe that exists, and I just don't know about it.
Mr. Miller, I would submit to you that in order to provide an analysis of two particular options, they both need to be viable options. And we do not have the option to retire debt until the call date of the respective bond issue. And so the reason we're presenting an advanced refunding opportunity is because we haven't arrived at the call date just yet in the particular issues that are on the table. And what will be before us in late spring is an opportunity when some other bonds will reach their call date, and we will have the opportunity to pay some cash into the deal to retire some principal. This is not like a home mortgage where we can just add some principal to the periodic payments. We have to wait till the call date in order to retire any debt, and there are no opportunities to do that until we reach the call date.
And I respectfully, I know that, right? So what the question is this. We can analyze what we would do with these funds to say we're going to park them and pay debt off of that 2012 bond issue at $19 million, and we can assess the savings of paying that off versus the others. We could do that.
I don't guess I'm communicating well, Mr. Miller, because there's no funds that we're not putting any fund balance into this deal. So there really are no funds that we would have in order to do that with. The funds that we will have to do that with will be available in the spring.
So we can't use any of the $39 million to say we're going to take that and hold it and pay off debt next year?
That's what we're saying we're proposing to do.
No, you're going to sell bonds and put that in escrow to...
But that's not going to affect our fund balance in the debt service fund. This transaction will not negatively impact our fund balance.
And that's what concerns me. Because the only way to pay down debt is to influence that fund balance, use that fund balance. And that's the point I'm trying to make, is that we're focused on a servicing debt strategy versus paying it off. We're going to use less money to pay off the debt, but we're not paying down the debt at a rate that we could. And I just don't know what our strategy is to pay down debt, other than to refinance instruments and react to the market. If the market conditions are right, then what we'll do is that we'll refinance those instruments when they're called. That's our fundamental position that we've had. If that is our strategy, then we just all need to agree. But I think we continue to come to these things. Well, what about this? What about that? We even did it in looking at our tax rate. And should we pay down debt? We've done that actually the last 4 Augusts. We've analyzed should we pay off debt, and we've chosen to go this path. That's what I'm putting forward today.
Okay, are there any other questions? Someone like to make a motion?
I move to approve the adoption of the order authorizing the issuance of unlimited tax refunding bonds, Series 2017A, establishing sale parameters, authorizing the execution of bond purchase agreement and an escrow agreement, approving an official statement, and acting other provisions relating to the subject as recommended by administration.
The motion by Ms. Hassett. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Sheffield. All in favor? The motion by Ms. Prosnick, Ms. Hassett, Ms. Timish, Ms. Cox, Ms. Sells, Ms. Sheffield. All opposed? Mr. Miller. That's 6-1. What's all the consent agenda items? Is there any one item that needs to be pulled?
Yes. I want to pull K.1.E. I think that's it at this point.
Prosnick?
Yes, can I pull K1B? B is in boy. B is in boy.
K1E and K1B. Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Sells?
I hope I do this right. I move the board approve the consent agenda items as recommended by administration with the exception of items K1B and K1E that have been pulled for separate consideration.
A motion by Ms. Sells. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Sheffield. All in favor? 7-0. Okay, Ms. Prosnick, would you like to speak to your motion?
Sorry. I move that the board approve consent agenda item K1B, approval of new high school courses for 2018-19.
Motion by Ms. Prosnick. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Sheffield. Ms. Prosnick, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, this is regarding the fire and EMT training. I just want to know how we're going to communicate that so that all of our high school students know that it is available for them to participate in what I think is an amazing and meaningful program.
I'd be happy to speak to that, and I agree. It's a wonderful program. On the high school course description guide, should the board choose to approve this item, these courses, all of them listed, including firefighting 1 and 2 dual credit, would be listed on our course description, on our course selection sheet, and in the course description guide for all high schools. As we currently stand for 2018-19, the proposed firefighting dual credit would be housed at Lewisville High School, but available to any student. We're working on being as creative as we can to provide an option for a non-Lewisville High School student to be able to access that program. And as we talked about in the Curriculum and Programs Committee, certainly we want to see what kind of interest there is moving forward to see how that can be expanded so that it is even more easily accessible to our students across all of our high schools in the district.
Thank you.
I have a question to that. So why can't we move that to the Career Center?
That's kind of the future considerations right
so
there.
do we have a timeline on that?
What we have at Lewisville High School right now is a space to have it, and that's kind of the biggest thing.
I'm interested in what was so I assume this went before the curriculum committee? Okay. And we're getting it from committee to decision. What's the budget impact of this?
Sure. The addition of any course, and you've got to have staff for it, which is obviously if students are signing up for one course, they're not signing up for another course. I can't say that's a zero-sum game, but the courses, Adrian can speak a little bit to any of the startup costs in firefighter dual credit. I know it's pretty minimal. The other courses do not carry a financial impact. The other 4 courses listed, the video game design 2 and 3, and the 3 ESOL courses do not carry a
Let me clarify my question.
Sure.
We're voting tonight to add 5 classes across LASD. What's the financial impact to the district, total financial impact to the district on these 5 classes? Not just the firefighter, $5,300 for the firefighter, that type of thing. What's the total? We're making a financial decision here as much as we are an instructional decision. Does anybody have that number?
Mr. Miller, I think what Dr. Coburn's saying, and you can jump in on this, Dr. Coburn, is that by us creating new classes doesn't mean that we're adding new staff, or it just means that we are correcting some things either in the course description guide or offering a different elective that a kid can choose instead of another elective. So I don't know if there's some other specifics.
No, I'd point to my colleague across the way there, and Dr. Bonner. The formula by which we staff campuses will not change with the addition of 5 courses to the course description guide.
I agree with that.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bonner. Okay, I'll just close with this. I mean, I just, the timing of this is just kind of, I'm just wondering, we're going to have a budget workshop next month. There's no increased staffing, but there's increased work. Campuses are getting more. They're doing more. We know that the firefighter program probably, through dual credit or whatever, $5,300. Somebody's paying for that, parents or, however that works, probably tuition or they finance it. So here we are, we're making a decision that is going to impact, because everything's a trade-off, right? If we don't increase our staffing model, that means that things that we might come up with next month in the budget workshop, we've already encumbered that. We've already made a board vote tonight that we're going to add these 5 classes. So that's just anchored some additional resources, right? So I'm not sure whether the timing and why it didn't come before the board is some type of discussion beforehand, but I know that this will move forward. So,
Mr. Miller, having sat on the curriculum committee on this, one of the reasons that the firefighter EMT was brought and put here on the consent item was because we're going to be pushing out those course class schedules to our high school students, and we wanted those to be available to them for the entire district, for that to be available for students to have that option to choose. And the same goes for the other courses as well.
That's it.
Also, just because they offer them doesn't mean that they will make. So some of these courses that are offered will not have a cost associated with them because they didn't make that year because there weren't enough students.
That is correct. And at all 5 of our high schools, there are courses that are offered that you simply don't have enough students that sign up to make it viable. As much as it would be great to be able to offer every course for every child, that kind of one-to-one is, I don't know, my friend Mr. Ball over there might not think that was a great idea. But we do the best we can, and if we offer the course and we educate about the availability of, and our counselors can educate about the availability of, then the students can make decisions, and we can try to be as accommodating as we can.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Prosnick, a second by Ms. Sheffield. All in favor? 7-0, motion carries. Okay, Mr. Miller, would you like to make a motion to your item?
I'll make it. I move that the board approve consent agenda item, K1E, as presented by administration.
A motion by Ms. Sheffield. Do we have a second? Timish. Mr. Miller, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, so my primary question here, after kind of looking at all the correspondence back and forth, is I'm just trying to understand, we're going to use Next Bank to, and was there a competitive bid process? I mean, I get that our financial advisor recommended them, but there still has to be some type of process that we go through in selecting them over other companies, I would assume.
No, sir. There is no bid requirement on that. And in fact, all we're proposing is to place some funds on deposit with this financial institution. We've engaged an investment advisor firm to point us to places where we can increase the yields on excess district cash without increasing our risk profile. This is one of the recommendations they have made. This bank has a money market account that pays about 42 basis points above what tax pool rates are. And so just like there hasn't been a competitive process to put money in tax pool, there isn't one to put money in this bank should the board grant us the approval to do so. And so that's what we've hired the investment firm to do, is to point us to, they've got people in their office that are constantly on the lookout for places to invest excess cash at better returns, and this is what they've recommended to us at this time.
So, I mean, I think that makes sense. I think the board did make a decision a number of years back to use tax pool. That was not just done by the finance department, but what a great deal to sit on millions of dollars, this new company that we're going to deal with, to sit on millions of dollars of our money, which they make money off that. And I'm just wondering how that kind of supports an open process. I mean, we didn't even know about this till tonight, as I'm aware of. And just trying to understand how I saw the collateral, they can collateralize it and everything. There are a lot of companies that could do that. And why this one, right? We've got no relationship with. I'm sure our financial advisor has a relationship with somebody we've done work with already.
Ms. Miller, I'm really not sure how to answer that any better than I just did. We hired a firm to point us to areas where we can invest excess cash at better rates than what we've been investing. There is no competitive requirement, and there is a due diligence requirement that we've done. We've provided financial data on that institution. We've provided their bond rating report, in addition to the due diligence that our investment advisor firm has done. So, I believe it's an opportunity to do exactly what the investment firm was hired to do, and that is put some money in a safe place that pays a little better return than what we've been experiencing.
Yeah, and Mr. Miller, this was presented to the Finance Committee, which the notes were sent out to the entire board. I'm not sure if that company was in there, but the notes were sent out. We felt like this is actually a very reputable company and a good opportunity for the district. Are there any other questions? Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Sheffield, a second by Ms. Timish. All in favor? Miller, are you? No, that's 7-0. Motion carries. Okay. If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is now 9:24. Everyone have a great evening, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone.